Today, I'm joined by Dee and April from NIBOSH. NIBOSH is the National Examination Board in Occupational Safety and Health. So thank you so much for joining me today. Maybe could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do at NIBOSH, and maybe what quality means in your context?
So, as you said, I'm Chief Quality Officer at NIBOSH. So I have accountability for our portfolio of qualifications and content. So that is very much in the health, safety, environmental wellbeing space. Obviously, within those, responsibility for the assessments for those qualifications. Working with April on the compliance side of things. So that's compliance with our regulator, but also quality assurance, right across NIBOSH as an entire organisation. Also look after our reliability team, and they are responsible for the recruitment, the training and the quality assurance of all of our examiners.
Okay, so I'm Head of Regulatory Compliance, as you said. It's a bit of a mouthful, but so Dee's actually already explained what I do. So I'm responsible for the relationship between us as an awarding organisation and our UK regulators. We are looking at some international as well, but that's at some point maybe. So it's really kind of complying and looking at that quality aspect. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction. So we were all at eAA a couple of weeks ago. Maybe to ask, what was the one conversation or moment that really stayed with you from eAA?
Oh, generally, the eAA is such an amazing atmosphere with a lot of people. There's a big melting pot of ideas and things that are happening and will be happening and so on. So it's always a pleasure to go along to that. I think something that's stuck in my head really is a presentation that we had and a further conversation that I had with a digital assessment vendor where they were showing how we can now create new assessment types through conversations with AI without any need for coding or anything that would basically require a degree in IT to be able to create. And the thing that struck me is the fact that the AI was then going into questioning the person that was asking about creating that assessment type and actually asking you to say, is this going to be valid? Have you thought about things like accessibility and so on? So it was asking us questions about improving that assessment type so it was available to anybody really, and that's just a massive step forward, I think, even from last year, and it's the way forward. So excellent.
Maybe to add to it, it's really impressive indeed where we're heading with the technological improvements, and it is one of the biggest conversations that we had in eAA indeed. But sometimes what we see in our market, among our clients, there is a bit of a fear with going digital or with the things that you can do with AI, because also you're in a high stakes environment. The exams that you do, the certificates that you give, it needs to be fair for the candidate. So what do you think around that?
I think in terms of the creation of the items and so on, it's not just as simple as I explained, just asking it to set it with questions and so on. It's more kind of involved with that and making sure that it's going to be a valid assessment and assessment type. I don't know whether Dee, you want to go into any more detail on that.
Yeah, so if you have human in the loop, then maybe indeed.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, this is what we also learned from the eAA. It's not just about the human in the loop, it's the expert in the loop that's equally as important to stress. So you need to know what you're doing, basically. It's not walking off the street, let's press a few buttons and here's your assessment. It's still got that and has to have that element of expertise in there.
So when we think of these developments, also for the future, what do you think the assessment industry is getting right at the moment, or what do you think still needs to change?
I think what they're getting right is events like the eAA conference that we started talking about, by the people that are on the ground doing this, coming together and sharing experiences.
Mm.
I think it's exactly what people need, because there is fear. You've got education and assessment experts that are suddenly trying to embrace all this technology and digital advancement. It's not my competence at all. So I think coming together and sharing experiences, what's gone right, what hasn't gone so well, is absolutely critical. So I think what the assessment sector is doing absolutely right is that coming together, embracing the technology, but I think for me also remembering that the assessment principles are still the same. Amidst all this change, some things are still very grounded in that reality. This is about people being able to be educated, to learn, and have that learning assessed. That hasn't changed. How can digital, how can tech, how can AI assist that rather than take over? So I think the challenge is that we still lead the charge, but use the tech in that charge rather than AI
Yeah.
and tech doing the charge and us running behind trying to keep up.
It's very interesting because indeed the technology side, it's obvious, it's there, it's very fast. That's one part of it. But I'm also wondering a little bit, are there trends in the market now that are changing how certification needs to be delivered for NEBOSH? Like things like fraud, or maybe AI used in exams, or regulatory changes that you face? Maybe a little bit specific, but
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, as we've been saying, the regulators are still requiring that expert in the loop. This is still so new. We're talking about high stakes qualification. We're talking about people, our learners that want to still be recognized as a human being and have feedback. So we still need to have that in mind. I think some of the challenges that we're seeing as an international awarding body is that the equity, that not everybody, not all of our learners have access to the same technology as others. So we're very mindful of that. The other challenge, as you've said, is, what is a challenge for us can be seen as an opportunity for learners sometimes to misuse, the access to AI. So we've got to be very mindful how we write the assessments and how we put them out there, making sure that we've got authenticity. And I think that's one of the key issues for me. How much are we sometimes losing, or potentially losing, some validity, some humanity in the assessment process to make sure we've got authenticity. And assessment always is about spinning plates and trying to tick so many boxes and getting the best balance. But I think that's one of our big challenges at the minute. How do we use the best of technology, but make sure that we've still got a learner that is getting the very best learning and assessment journey?
okay, that's very interesting. And for the learning side, I think I heard from April that you work with partners for trainings. How is it done? Is it easy to manage the quality, the validity of that training, and then link it to an assessment? How does that work for you?
So we've got a teaching quality team. It's relatively new, the last few years, a couple of years. So they focus on kind of ensuring that our learning partners or our centres have a certain standard of teaching, and that gets audited and so on. So there's lots of materials out there and suggestions on how you can do that formative assessment and that check-in with the learner to make sure that they are actually learning and not just learning to pass an exam, which is not what we're about
Indeed.
at all. Yeah,
Indeed.
it's definitely about learning and not passing. Well, it's passing as well, but you know what I mean.
That's super interesting because that brings me to the next question. Yeah, we're always now discussing, we discussed it at eAA, we also talk about this internally at Assessment Q as well. In 5 years, how do you think the assessment of the knowledge will be? How will we measure the knowledge? Because right now, there are a lot of students that are using AI to write their thesis, to get help. Are they really learning, or are they relying on AI? So these are the things that makes me want to ask the question to you. What do you think about this? Do you think how we measure the knowledge now will be same in 5 years? How do you think that will change?
It's another great question. And I think the key there for me is learning. As a health and safety awarding organisation, we are qualifying people to go into workplaces and advise on people's health and safety. So that learning is critical. That qualification certificate has to be authentic and mean that they've earned that because they've learned the content of the course and the qualification. I think there'll be change, but I think there'll be similarities as well. Again, as April was saying about our teaching quality team, I think we need to use the tech to assist the learning. We need to help learners in all sectors, use technology and AI in the very best way. So I think we need to build that into the learning and then maybe have more checkpoints along that learning journey rather than, this huge summative assessment at the end, where, as you say, AI is sometimes being used inauthentically to assist that assessment. So I think more checkpoints. And I think that's in alignment with how newer generations want to learn and be assessed anyway. It's not like my day where it was very normal to do, a year, 2 years, and then you have huge examinations at the end where you cram all the knowledge in. That's not how younger generations' brains work anymore, or how they want to be taught or assessed. So I think that's smaller, bite-sized learning. But I think for me, what I'd like to see is still some human intervention with feedback. And, again, technology can make that more efficient. But I think, the checkpoints and learners having that human touch. You talk to so many people who say, who inspired you in your life? And it'll be a teacher in a lot of cases. So I think, and maybe technology can do that in the future. Maybe it can start being responsible for inspiration and motivation. But I think it's the balance. If I had to sum it in one word, it's balance. It's using the technology to assist that learning journey and get the authentic assessment at the end. But I think the change will be is how much, people will still need knowledge, but it's become just so much more swiftly accessible. You don't need to go to the library and research, you can use the technology. So I think we need to teach people how to use the access to the knowledge that is now so super available in the best way.
Yeah. And also be critical about it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you so much, April. Thank you so much, Dee, for joining me today and sharing your honest take on these questions. It was, again, a pleasure talking with you.
You too.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.